AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she made me her fat bridesmaid on purpose. So, I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my older sister, Emily, 32F. We grew up close in age, but she was always the pretty one, tall, slim, blonde, the type of girl who got attention without even trying. I was the funny one, the smart one, or the nice one, depending on who you asked. And for most of my life, I've been a bit overweight. Not obese, just plus size. I've learned to accept my body and dress in ways that make me feel confident. But Emily never let me forget the difference between us. It wasn't outright bullying, more like small digs hidden as jokes. When we were teenagers, she'd say things like, "You're so brave for wearing that crop top," or, "I wish I had your confidence." She'd roll her eyes when I went for seconds at dinner, and I swear she took actual pleasure in reminding me of how many calories something had. Over time, I got used to it. I learned to let it roll off my back. But apparently, I underestimated just how deep her pettiness could go. Emily got engaged last year to her fiancé, Nick, 35M. I was genuinely happy for her. He's a decent guy, if a little quiet, and I expected her to ask me to be her maid of honor since we're sisters. Instead, she asked me to be a bridesmaid. I was a little surprised, but I didn't say anything. I thought maybe she just wanted her best friend, Sophie, as maid of honor, which was fine. Everything was going smoothly until the bridesmaid dress fittings. There were 6 bridesmaids in total, and Emily picked the dresses herself. She told us she wanted a mismatched but coordinated look, meaning we could each wear slightly different styles in the same color palette. Everyone else got flowy, flattering dresses in various shades of blush and champagne. When it was my turn, she showed me my assigned dress. It was a clingy satin number in a weird, washed-out beige that looked like wet sand. It had no structure, no support, and hit at the most unflattering place on my stomach. I thought there must have been a mistake. I said, I don't think this works with my body type. Maybe I could try the same style as Sarah or Jess." She gave me this fake sweet smile and said, "Oh no, that style won't suit you. You'll look better in this one. It's more slimming. Trust me." I didn't trust her, but I didn't want to cause a scene. I ordered the dress in my size and figured maybe a good tailor could fix it. When it arrived, it was worse than I thought. The fabric clung to every curve and crease, and the color made me look like a wilted flower. I cried in my room for an hour before texting Emily that I wasn't comfortable in the dress and asking if we could find a compromise. She replied, "You're overreacting. It's just a dress. Stop making this about you." That's when I started to feel suspicious. I ended up talking to one of the other bridesmaids, Jess, who's been a friend of mine for years. She hesitated, but eventually told me the truth. Apparently, during a brunch with a bridal party, Emily joked that she wanted to make sure the photos looked balanced and that every bride needs a fat bridesmaid for contrast. When I heard that, I felt physically sick. Jess said she told Emily that was a messed up thing to say, but Emily just laughed it off and said it's not that deep. I confronted Emily a few days later. I told her what I heard and asked if it was true. She didn't even deny it. She said, "Oh my God, you're being so dramatic. It was a joke. You know how people say you can't have all your bridesmaids be supermodels, right? It's funny, relax." I told her it wasn't funny. It was cruel, and I didn't appreciate being treated like a prop in her wedding photos. She rolled her eyes and said, "You're literally ruining everything. It's my wedding. Not everything has to revolve around your insecurities." That was the final straw. I told her I wouldn't be in the wedding. She immediately went ballistic, saying I was embarrassing her and that now everyone would think we were fighting. She begged me to at least attend the ceremony for the family, but I said no. I told her I wouldn't be part of a day that made me feel like a joke. My parents got involved, of course. My mom said I should just be the bigger person, the irony didn't escape me, and go to keep the peace. My dad stayed mostly quiet, but hinted that he thought Emily's comment was out of line. Since then, Emily has been blowing up my phone with passive-aggressive messages like, "Hope you're happy ruining my wedding week," and "Can't believe you do this to your own sister." My mom keeps saying I'll regret not being there for such a special moment, but honestly, I feel more hurt than guilty. The wedding is next week, and I've already told everyone I'm not coming. Now some extended family members are calling me immature and selfish, saying it's just a joke, and I should get over it. But I can't shake the feeling that Emily knew exactly what she was doing. She's always needed to be the center of attention, and the idea that her fat sister might look confident or beautiful standing next to her must have bothered her more than she realized. The thing is, this isn't about the dress anymore. It's about years of little comments and subtle digs that finally broke me. I've spent my whole life being the punchline in her stories, the one she could tease without consequence. For once, I decided not to play that role. Now my mom isn't speaking to me. Emily's blocked me on everything, and I'm sitting here wondering if maybe I did go too far. But another part of me feels a strange relief, like I finally stood up for myself after years of letting her walk all over me. Still, I can't help but question if I should have just sucked it up for one day and avoided the family drama. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she made me her fat bridesmaid on purpose. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my husband's parents move into our house after he offered without asking me. So I, 34F, have been married to my husband, Jake, 36M, for 7 years. We've had our ups and downs, but overall I thought we were a pretty solid team. We bought our first home 3 years ago, and it's something I'm incredibly proud of. I work full-time as a nurse, and Jake runs his own small landscaping business. We split bills fairly evenly, but I was the one who handled most of the financial planning to get us this house. It's not a mansion or anything, but it's ours, and I love it. Jake's parents, Linda, 62F, and Mark, 64M, have always been intense. They're the kind of people who believe family comes before everything, but what they really mean is you should always do what we say because we're family. Linda, in particular, is the queen of guilt trips. She's constantly inserting herself into our lives, showing up unannounced, making passive-aggressive comments about my cooking or how quiet the house feels without children. We've chosen to be child-free for now. I've learned to keep the peace by smiling and letting it roll off my back, but it wears me down. A few weeks ago, Jake told me his dad's health was declining. Apparently, Mark's been having trouble with his knees and can't work anymore. Their house also needs a lot of repairs they can't afford. I sympathized, of course, but I assumed Jake meant we'd help them financially a little or maybe find a smaller apartment for them nearby. Then, a few days later, I came home from a long shift to find Linda and Mark sitting in my living room, on my couch, drinking my coffee, while Jake was proudly showing them around their new home. I thought I misheard. I asked, "They're what?" And Jake smiled and said, "I told you Dad's not doing well. They're moving in with us for a while, just until they get back on their feet." I stared at him, waiting for the punchline, but there wasn't one. He had already moved their stuff, boxes, clothes, even their old recliners, into our guest room. I couldn't believe it. I pulled him aside and said, "You did what?" He told me not to make a scene and that his parents needed him. I told him that I understood wanting to help, but this was not something he got to decide alone. We both own the house, and I deserve a say in who lives here. He said, "They're my parents. Of course I'm not going to leave them homeless." I said, "I get that, but there's a difference between helping them and letting them move in indefinitely without even asking me." Linda overheard and jumped in with her trademark guilt trip. She said, "We didn't want to be a burden, sweetie. We can sleep in the living room if the guest room's too much." Then she added, "I just can't believe you turn away your husband's sick father." I didn't respond because if I opened my mouth, I knew I'd say something cruel. That night, I barely slept. The thought of losing my personal space and privacy made me sick. I work long hours, often overnight, and when I come home, I need quiet. The idea of coming home to his parents 24/7, Linda's constant commentary and Mark's TV blaring all day, made my skin crawl. The next day, I told Jake flat out that they couldn't stay. He called me heartless. He said, "They have nowhere else to go." I said, "Then we'll find them somewhere else, but not here." I even offered to help pay for a small apartment or senior housing. He said I was being selfish, that it's just temporary. I asked him to define temporary, and he couldn't. When I pressed him, he admitted that he didn't really have a plan to move them out later. It's just until Dad's better, he said. But Mark's health problems aren't short-term. They're chronic. Until he's better might mean years. That's when I realized Jake wasn't being naive. He was being manipulative. He thought if he just did it and presented it as a done deal, I'd have no choice but to accept it. So I made a decision. I told him, if they move in, I move out. He laughed at first, thinking I was bluffing. But I wasn't. I packed a bag that night and stayed with my sister for a few days. The next morning, I texted him and said I wouldn't come home until his parents were gone. Cue the explosion. Linda called me crying, saying I was tearing the family apart. Mark, who's usually quiet, left me a voicemail calling me cruel. Jake texted me nonstop, saying I was abandoning him when he needed me most. After a week, Jake showed up at my sister's house begging me to come home. He said his parents were hurt and confused, and that he'd never forgive himself if something happened to his dad while I was being stubborn. I told him again that I'm not heartless. I want them taken care of, but moving them into our home was not an option. We could afford to help them find a place nearby. I even found a nice ground floor apartment less than 10 minutes from us. When I showed him the listing, he said, they can't live in an apartment. They need family. I said they'll still have family, just not under the same roof. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, we've barely spoken. He's still living at our house with his parents. I've stayed at my sister's. He told me yesterday that I'm being dramatic and that a real wife would stand by her husband. I told him a real husband wouldn't make a major life decision without his wife's consent. My mom thinks I did the right thing and that Jake crossed a huge boundary. My dad says I probably could have handled it more gently. A few of Jake's friends apparently think I'm being selfish because family should come first. But I keep asking, whose family? Mine or his? Part of me feels guilty because Mark really is sick and I don't want to seem like I don't care. But another part of me is furious that my home, my one safe place, was turned into a power move without my consent. I haven't decided if I'm going back or not. But right now, it feels like the trust between us is broken. AITA for refusing to let my husband's parents move into our house after he offered without asking me. AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law move into our guest room, even though she's basically homeless because of her own choices. So, my husband, 36M, and I, 34F, have been together for 10 years and married for 5. We live in a small but cozy 3-bedroom house. Our bedroom, a home office, and a guest room that we use for family visits since both of our parents live out of state. We're financially comfortable, not rich, but stable. My sister-in-law, Tara, 29F, is my husband's younger sister. Tara has always been unpredictable. She's charming and funny, but she's never really stuck with anything: jobs, relationships, apartments. She tends to burn bridges, blame everyone else, and move on to the next fresh start. Over the years, she's borrowed money from us more times than I can count. Sometimes she paid it back, most times she didn't. The current situation started about 3 months ago when Tara called my husband crying, saying her roommate kicked her out after she stopped paying rent. Apparently, she lost her job because she didn't vibe with her boss. She asked if she could crash at our place for a few weeks until I get back on my feet. My husband, being the soft-hearted guy he is, immediately said yes. I wasn't thrilled, but I agreed on the condition that she follow some house rules, clean up after herself, don't bring strangers over, contribute a little toward groceries if she could. The first week was fine. She was polite, grateful, and even made dinner once. But after that, everything went downhill. Tara started sleeping in until noon, blasting music in the afternoon while I was working from home, and leaving dishes everywhere. She had random people over, sometimes friends, sometimes what I can only assume were dates. Once, I came home from running errands and found some guy I didn't know sitting shirtless on our couch eating my leftovers. When I confronted Tara, she rolled her eyes and said I was acting like a landlord. I reminded her that it was our home, not a hostel. She got defensive, claiming she needed a social life and that I was controlling. My husband asked her to tone it down, but she twisted it into us ganging up on her. Weeks turned into months. Every time we asked about her job search, she had an excuse. I'm manifesting the right opportunity. I can't work under capitalism. I'm thinking of starting my own brand. She was doing nothing but scrolling on her phone and ordering delivery. Last month, I told my husband that this couldn't go on. I love him, but Tara was ruining our peace. We were arguing constantly about her, and I felt like I was living with a rebellious teenager. He reluctantly agreed that she needed to go. We sat her down and told her she had 2 more weeks to find somewhere else. She freaked out. She accused us of abandoning her, saying we don't understand how hard it is for creative people. She cried, screamed, and then locked herself in the guest room. 2 weeks passed. No job, no plans, no effort. The deadline came and went. When I told her she needed to leave by the weekend, she said, "You can't kick out family." That weekend, my parents-in-law called, clearly having heard a very different version of events. Tara had told them that we were throwing her on the street and that I never liked her. My mother-in-law asked if she could just stay until after the holidays, which were still 3 months away. I said no. This caused a massive blow-up in the family group chat. My husband's parents and cousins started weighing in. Some said we should be compassionate. Others said Tara needed to grow up. My husband tried to stay neutral at first, but eventually he said, "We've done enough." The next morning, Tara packed her stuff and left without a word. She texted me a few hours later, saying she was staying with a friend and that she hoped I was happy to have my precious guest room back. Now here's where things get complicated. My husband and I recently found out that Tara's friend kicked her out after only a week. She's now living in her car and posting cryptic messages online about fake family. My mother-in-law has been calling daily, saying that Tara is technically homeless and that it's heartless for us not to take her back in. I feel terrible about the idea of her sleeping in her car, but I can't ignore how she behaved when she was here. She refused to help herself, disrespected our home, and made me miserable in my own space. I told my husband that if she moves back in, I'll go stay with my sister for a while because I can't go through that again. He's torn. He agrees that she's impossible, but he feels guilty because she's his sister. He said, "It's not about what she deserves, it's about doing the right thing." I told her we already did the right thing for 3 months, and she wasted it. Now my in-laws are furious. They've hinted that if anything bad happens to Tara, it'll be on us. My own parents think I'm justified, but they also said, "You'll never win with family drama like this." I can't stop wondering if I'm being cruel. Maybe I should have given her one last chance, or at least helped her find a shelter or a job. But at the same time, I feel like she's been given endless chances by everyone around her, and she just expects people to rescue her. The guilt is eating at me, though. When I see her posts online about people abandoning her when she needed love, I feel awful, even though I know she's twisting the narrative. My husband said maybe we could pay for her to stay at a motel for a couple of weeks, but I said that would just delay the inevitable. She needs consequences, not more lifelines. Still, I can't shake the thought that if something truly bad happens, if she gets hurt, or worse, I'll have to live with that. So here I am, lying awake at night, questioning everything. Did I draw a healthy boundary, or did I abandon someone who truly needed help? AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law move back in, even though she's technically homeless now? AITA for refusing to give up my late father's house to my brother, even though he has kids and I don't? So, my dad passed away a year and a half ago. He had 2 kids, me, 32F, and my brother, Nick, 36M. Our mom died when we were little, and Dad raised us pretty much on his own. We weren't rich growing up, but Dad worked hard as a mechanic and eventually bought the small house we grew up in. He always said it was the only thing of real value he owned, and that he wanted it to stay in the family. When he got sick a few years ago, I moved back home to help take care of him. I work remotely as a graphic designer, so I was able to manage my job and take care of him at the same time. Nick, on the other hand, lived 3 hours away with his wife and their 2 kids. He'd visit every few months, but most of the caretaking was on me. Doctor appointments, medications, groceries, cleaning, all of it. I didn't mind. I loved Dad, and he always appreciated it. Before he passed, Dad told me privately that he wanted me to have the house. He said he'd already updated his will to reflect that. He told me it wasn't because he loved Nick less, but because I'd been there for him and because he knew I'd take care of the place. He said Nick had his own life and family, and that I deserved stability too. When Dad passed, I didn't bring it up right away because it felt wrong to talk about inheritance at that moment. But when the lawyer read the will, it confirmed everything. Dad left the house to me outright, and the rest of his small savings, about $15,000, was to be split between Nick and me. Nick's reaction was explosive. He immediately said there must have been a mistake. He kept saying, "Dad would never do that to me." The lawyer explained that the will had been updated 2 years prior, and that everything was legally sound. Nick stormed out of the office. Since then, things have gone downhill fast. Nick has been telling everyone, his wife, our aunts, cousins, that I stole the house. His argument is that since he has a family and I'm single, it's only fair that he gets the house for his kids. He and his wife currently rent a small townhouse, and I guess their rent went up recently, so they're struggling a bit. I've tried to stay calm and reasonable, but the constant guilt tripping has been exhausting. Nick keeps saying I'm being selfish because I don't need a whole house for just me. I keep reminding him that this isn't something I decided. Dad made that choice himself. But Nick insists Dad must have been manipulated or confused when he changed the will. He even went so far as to contact the lawyer on his own to challenge the will, but after reviewing it again, the lawyer told him it was airtight. That didn't stop him from telling everyone that I must have pressured Dad while he was sick. That accusation hurt more than I can even describe. For context, I'm not rolling in money either. I make a modest income and have student loans, but owning the house outright gave me a chance to finally have some stability. It's in an older neighborhood, and while it's not fancy, it's home. I've spent the last year fixing it up, repainting, repairing the porch, planting a small garden out back. All things Dad always wanted to do, but never got around to. Last month, Nick called me again. He said he and his wife were expecting another baby and that their landlord was selling the property they're in, so they needed to move soon. He asked if they could temporarily move into Dad's house until they got back on their feet. I said no, firmly but politely. I told him I didn't want to live with them, and I didn't trust that temporary wouldn't turn into permanent. That's when he lost it. He started shouting about how blood is supposed to come before money, and that I was hoarding the house out of spite. I told him again that this was Dad's decision, not mine, and that I wasn't going to undo Dad's final wishes just to make him feel better. He called me a heartless bitch and hung up. Since then, my phone's been blowing up. His wife texted me saying I'm punishing children for something they didn't do, and that I should think of family, not property. My Aunt Marie called to tell me that Nick is struggling, and that your dad would have wanted his grandkids to have a home. I pointed out that Dad did think about his grandkids, and he still chose to leave me the house. The worst part is that some people actually seem to believe Nick's version of events. A few cousins unfriended me on social media after Nick posted a long, dramatic rant about greedy siblings who don't care about family. I've stayed quiet publicly, but it's eating at me. I know Dad's will was clear, but being painted as some kind of villain is wearing me down. My boyfriend, we've been together a year, says I'm absolutely right to stand my ground. He pointed out that if I cave now, I'll never get them out again, and I'll be miserable in my own home. He also said that if the roles were reversed, Nick wouldn't hesitate to keep the house for himself. And honestly, he's probably right. Still, I keep feeling guilty. I know Nick's kids didn't ask for any of this. They're good kids, and I don't want them to suffer because their parents made bad financial choices. A small part of me wonders if I'm being stubborn by refusing to help, but every time I think about it, I remember the way Dad held my hand in the hospital and said, "You've done enough for this family. Let me do something for you." A few weeks ago, I got a letter from Nick's wife. She wrote that she was appealing to my conscience and that no decent person would let their own nieces and nephews be homeless. She even suggested I should sell the house, split the money, and start over somewhere else. I didn't respond. Now the holidays are coming up, and my family's already talking about how awkward it'll be if I don't make peace. My aunt suggested I at least offer them a few rooms so the kids can have a roof over their heads for Christmas. The thought of sharing my home with people who have called me manipulative and greedy makes me physically ill. Last night, I got another message from Nick. You're seriously going to let your own brother and his kids live in a motel while you sit in Dad's house alone? You've changed. I didn't reply, but I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. Part of me feels like maybe I'm being heartless. Maybe I should be more compassionate. But another part of me knows that this house is all I have left of Dad, and I can't let them bulldoze that because they think I don't need it. So now I'm stuck wondering, am I really the asshole for refusing to give my brother the house, even though he has kids and I don't? AITA for refusing to babysit my sister's kids after she tested me with a fake emergency? I, 29F, have always had a complicated relationship with my older sister, Claire, 34F. We grew up close, but as adults, she's become intense. She's a mom of two, ages 5 and 8, and she's one of those people who post nonstop about mom life and how nobody understands how hard it is. I don't have kids, which apparently makes me naive about real responsibility, according to her. I work full-time in a demanding job, marketing analyst, and live about 40 minutes away. I love my niece and nephew, but I'm not their built-in babysitter. Claire, on the other hand, seems to think that every family member should drop everything when she needs help. She's called me at work before asking if I can swing by to pick up her kids from school, as if I don't have a job myself. The last straw started a few weeks ago. Claire called me on a Friday night, saying she and her husband were going out to a charity dinner. She asked if I could watch the kids just this once. I already had plans, a rare date night with my boyfriend, and I told her I couldn't. She got huffy and said I was being selfish. I told her she could hire a sitter like any other parent. She hung up on me. The next week, she texted saying she forgave me and that she understood. I figured that was the end of it. Oh, I was wrong. Last Saturday morning, I got a frantic call from her at 7:30 a.m. She was crying, saying there'd been a family emergency. She said her husband had been in a car accident and she was on her way to the hospital, but she needed me to come get the kids right away because she couldn't bring them with her. I was half asleep and immediately panicked. I told her I was leaving right then and threw on clothes, didn't even brush my hair. I drove the 40 minutes as fast as I could. When I arrived, I saw her car in the driveway. I ran to the door, expecting chaos. But when I got there, she was sitting in the living room in pajamas, sipping coffee, the kids playing quietly in front of the TV. She looked completely calm. My first thought was that maybe she got word her husband was okay. But then she smiled and said, "Good. You came quickly. I was just testing to see if I could rely on you in a real emergency." I honestly thought she was joking. I asked her what she meant. She explained that after I refused to help her last week, she needed to know what kind of sister she could count on if something really happened. She said this was a simulation to see if I was dependable. I was in complete disbelief. I asked where her husband actually was, and she said he was playing golf. The accident was fake. She admitted she made up the whole thing just to see if I would show up when she needed me. I was furious. I told her that lying about something like that wasn't just manipulative, it was disgusting. She rolled her eyes and said I was being dramatic and that I should actually feel good that I passed her test. She said she felt reassured now that she knew I'd drop everything if something happened for real. I told her to lose my number until she learned some boundaries. She called me cruel and said I was punishing her for caring. I just left. When I got home, I was still shaking with anger. My boyfriend thought it was one of the most unhinged things he'd ever heard. Since then, Claire's been texting me constantly, alternating between apologizing and guilt-tripping me. First it was, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you." Then, "You're overreacting, it was just a test." Then, "You're breaking up our family over nothing." My parents got dragged into it because Claire told them I cut her off over a misunderstanding. When I told them the full story, my mom said it was weird, but that Claire's under a lot of stress, and I should be the bigger person. My dad said it wasn't worth making a family rift. I said I'd forgive her when she admitted it was manipulative and crossed a major line. She refuses to do that. She keeps insisting that I'm taking it too seriously and that she only did it because she loves her kids. I told her love doesn't justify emotional blackmail. Yesterday, she sent me a long message saying that if anything ever does happen for real, she'll know not to bother calling me. I replied, "Good. Please don't." Now that my mom is saying I was cruel to say that. She told me I need to let it go and that family should come first even when they make mistakes. I said I'm fine helping in real emergencies, but I won't be someone's lab rat in fake ones. Mom sighed and said, "You'll understand when you're a parent." That old line again. I've always been the one expected to stay calm and be reasonable, but I genuinely don't see how what Claire did could be excused. She made me think someone could have died just to test my loyalty. I lost half my Saturday morning, was emotionally wrecked, and somehow I'm the one being told to apologize. Part of me wonders if I should have handled it differently, maybe stayed and talked it out instead of storming off. But honestly, if someone lies about an emergency, what conversation could possibly fix that? I told my mom that if Claire ever pulls something like that again, I'm blocking her entirely. Mom said I was making things worse, but I'm exhausted from being the only one expected to tolerate Claire's behavior because that's just how she is. Even my boyfriend, who's usually diplomatic, said she sounds dangerously entitled. But I still feel that family guilt kicking in, like maybe I'm supposed to forgive her no matter what, because she's my sister. Still, every time I picture that morning, me rushing out the door terrified while she sat there sipping coffee, I just feel sick. She turned my panic into a loyalty quiz. That's not family love. That's manipulation. So now I'm sitting here wondering if I went too far cutting contact. My parents think I should be the bigger person and set an example. Claire's still messaging me about how she did it out of love. But I can't shake the feeling that if I let this slide, she'll just do something worse next time. AITA for refusing to babysit or help her after the fake emergency stunt. AITA for telling my fiance's sister she's not welcome at our wedding after she tried to sabotage my dress fitting. I, 29F, am getting married in March to my fiancé, Ryan, 31M. We've been together for 5 years, and for the most part, his family has been nice to me, except for his sister, Hannah, 27F. Hannah and I have never gotten along. She's one of those people who hides passive-aggressive comments behind smiles. She's beautiful, confident, and used to being the center of attention. From the very beginning, I got the feeling she didn't like sharing that spotlight, especially not with me. When Ryan proposed last year, Hannah made a big show of being so happy for us, but every interaction since has been laced with tension. She's constantly undermining me in subtle ways, correcting me about wedding details, calling my style safe, suggesting that I should rethink certain choices because they don't fit Ryan's personality. She even tried to convince him that my choice of a smaller, intimate ceremony was boring and that we should go all out like she would if she ever got married. For months, I bit my tongue. I didn't want to cause problems between Ryan and his family, and I kept telling myself she probably didn't mean any harm. But things escalated last month during my dress fitting. I had chosen a boutique in town that allows only a few guests per fitting, so I invited my mom, my best friend, and, against my better judgment, Hannah, because Ryan asked me to. He said it would mean a lot to his family if his sister felt included. I reluctantly agreed, thinking maybe this could help us bond. Big mistake. From the moment we arrived, Hannah was acting strange. She kept touching dresses that weren't for her, making loud comments like, "That one's a little plain, don't you think?" Or, "I could never wear something like that. It's just not flattering." The boutique assistant gently asked her to stay seated a few times because she kept pulling dresses off the racks. My mom shot me a look like, "I told you so." When I came out wearing the dress, the one I'd been dreaming about for months, the room went silent for a moment. My mom's eyes welled up, my best friend gasped, and even the assistant said it looked like it was made for me. Then Hannah, without missing a beat, said, "It's nice, but don't you think it makes your hips look a little wide?" The mood died instantly. I tried to brush it off, but I was embarrassed. My mom and friend ignored her, but I could feel my confidence fading. I told the assistant I loved the dress anyway and that I wanted to order it. I paid the deposit, and the boutique said they'd hold it for final alterations next month. Fast forward a week later, I got a call from the boutique saying they needed me to confirm something about my alteration preferences. Confused, I asked what they meant. The woman on the phone said that my sister, I don't have one, had come by the shop and told them I changed my mind about the fit. She claimed I wanted the waist taken in and the neckline lowered to make it more modern and sexy. I nearly dropped the phone. I told them that was absolutely not true and that no one had permission to alter my dress but me. The assistant apologized profusely, said they hadn't started anything yet, and promised to flag my file so no one else could make changes. I immediately knew it was Hannah. No one else would do something like that. I called Ryan right away and told him what happened. He didn't believe me at first. He said, maybe it was just a misunderstanding. Why would Hannah even do that? So I called the boutique back and asked if they had security footage. They did. I went in the next day to see it. Sure enough, there was Hannah, clear as day, standing at the counter, pretending to be me. She gave my name, the dress number, and even tried to pay for the adjustments. When the boutique refused, she said she'd come back after confirming with her mom. I took screenshots from the footage and sent them to Ryan. He finally believed me, but instead of being as furious as I expected, he said, I'll talk to her. That night, Hannah called me crying. She said it was all a joke that went too far. She claimed she was just trying to see how the dress would look with a different cut, because she thought I wasn't confident enough to pick something that really showed off my figure. I was speechless. I told her what she did was creepy, invasive, and completely disrespectful. She said, oh my God, calm down. You act like I ruined your life. It was just a dress. I told her she wasn't welcome at the wedding anymore. She gasped like I'd slapped her and said, you're going to ban your fiancé's only sister? Good luck explaining that to everyone. When Ryan got home, he looked torn. He said he agreed that what she did was wrong, but that banning her might make things worse. He asked if I could just let it go for the sake of keeping peace. That made me even angrier. I told him that if he wanted peace, maybe his sister shouldn't mess with my personal property and try to humiliate me. Word spread fast. Ryan's parents called me the next day, furious. His mom said Hannah was just being playful and that she was trying to help me look my best. She accused me of making a scene and driving a wedge in the family. I told her that what Hannah did was manipulative and that no sane person would think impersonating someone to change their wedding dress was playful. His mom hung up on me. Now Ryan's in an impossible position. He keeps saying he understands both sides, which honestly makes me feel like he doesn't understand mine at all. My family and friends are completely on my side, but his family is calling me controlling and dramatic. I told Ryan that unless his sister genuinely apologizes and takes responsibility, not fake tears, it was just a joke, she's not coming. He says he can't force her to apologize, and if I ban her, it'll cause a permanent rift. At this point, I'm exhausted. I'm angry that this even happened, and I'm starting to wonder if I'm being too rigid. But every time I picture her smug face trying to mess with my dress, I get angry all over again. So, am I the asshole for telling my fiancé's sister she's not welcome at our wedding after she tried to sabotage my dress fitting? AITA for kicking my mom and stepdad out of my wedding after they tried to change the seating chart without telling me? This happened last weekend, and my phone hasn't stopped blowing up since. I, 27F, marry my husband, Ryan, 29M, after being together for 5 years. It was a small wedding, about 80 guests, a mix of family and close friends. We pay for almost everything ourselves, except for a small contribution my mom insisted on giving us as a gift. I didn't want her to feel obligated, but she said it was tradition. For context, my mom, 52F, remarried when I was 18 to my stepdad, Mark, 55M. He's not a bad guy, but he's very controlling and opinionated. Growing up, he always made me feel like I was living in his house instead of ours. He constantly criticized my choices, from my major in college to who I dated. My mom would always say, that's just how he is, don't take it personally. When Ryan and I got engaged, I knew planning the wedding with my mom involved would be tricky. She has a very specific vision of what she thinks a real wedding should be: formal, traditional, and extravagant. Ryan and I wanted something relaxed, more like a celebration than a performance. We booked an outdoor venue at a vineyard, had a buffet instead of a plated dinner, and asked guests to wear semi-formal attire. The first red flag came during the guest list phase. My mom wanted to invite distant relatives I barely know, along with some of her friends. When I said no, she accused me of being ungrateful and said she was only trying to make it special. I stood my ground, and she eventually dropped it, or so I thought. The week of the wedding, she called me saying she had a small request. Apparently, my stepdad wanted to sit with his business associates because they were important people and it would be rude to put them with other guests. I reminded her that our seating chart was already finalized and that we had carefully arranged tables so everyone could enjoy themselves. I told her we couldn't make changes that late, especially because the caterer and coordinator had everything set. She said, "Fine, I understand," but her tone was definitely not fine. Fast forward to the wedding day. Everything started off great. The ceremony went perfectly, and the weather was beautiful. Ryan looked incredible, everyone was smiling, and for the first time in weeks, I felt completely at peace. During cocktail hour, I noticed my mom and Mark talking quietly with one of the venue staff members, but I didn't think much of it at the time. When we moved to the reception area for dinner, I realized something was off. My friend Jess pulled me aside and said, "Hey, did you change the seating chart? Because my place card is missing." Then another guest said the same thing. Confused, I walked over to the entrance where the seating chart display was, and sure enough, it had been rearranged. Half the cards were swapped. My friends had been scattered randomly, and several people from Ryan's side were now sitting in the back near the restrooms. Meanwhile, Mark and his business friends were at the center table, directly in front of the head table, the spot that was supposed to be for my grandparents. I honestly thought I was going to faint. I pulled my wedding planner aside, and she told me that the mother of the bride had come by earlier and told the staff there had been a last-minute change. She said she didn't think it was unusual because it came from family. I went straight to my mom and asked what she'd done. She looked completely calm and said, "Don't make a scene. We just made a few small adjustments so everyone could be comfortable." I reminded her that she'd promised not to interfere. Mark chimed in and said, "You're overreacting. Nobody cares where they sit. It's your wedding, not a dictatorship." Ryan walked up mid-conversation and I just lost it. I told them they'd crossed the line and completely disrespected us. My mom said I was being dramatic and that I should be grateful she helped fix things. When I told her she'd embarrassed me in front of everyone, she rolled her eyes and said, "You're not the center of the universe, sweetheart." Ryan, who is normally super calm, stepped in and said, "You both need to leave." That's when Mars started yelling about how he paid for part of this wedding and deserved some respect. I told him his money didn't give him ownership of my wedding and that if he couldn't behave, he needed to get out immediately. My mom started crying, calling me ungrateful, saying I was ruining my own wedding day and that family should come first. I told her she should have thought about that before sabotaging our plans. Eventually, Ryan's best man and the venue manager escorted them out because they refused to leave at first. After they were gone, I was shaking. Everyone at the table had gone silent. Ryan's mom came over, hugged me, and said, "You did the right thing." I tried to hold it together for the rest of the night, but it was hard to enjoy myself knowing what had just happened. Now it's been a week, and the fallout is insane. My mom has been sending me long texts about how I humiliated her and chose a man over family. She says she can't believe I kicked my own mother out of my wedding and that I've let Ryan control me. Mark posted a passive-aggressive Facebook status about disrespectful children these days, and some relatives are taking their side. My grandma, Dad's mom, called me yesterday to say she's proud of me for standing up for myself, but she also thinks maybe I could have just ignored it to keep the peace. A few of my cousins messaged saying they would have done the same thing, while others said I went too far. I feel sick about the whole thing. I didn't want drama. I didn't want a scene. I just wanted one day, one single day, to celebrate without my mom and Mark making it about them. But now the entire family is split, and my mom says she's not speaking to me until I apologize publicly. Part of me feels guilty because I know she probably thought she was helping, but another part of me keeps replaying how calm and smug she looked when I confronted her, like she genuinely thought she was entitled to make changes to my wedding. So, Reddit, AITA for kicking my mom and stepdad out of my wedding after they changed the seating chart behind my back. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after a decade-long family dispute. I, 32F, have a complicated relationship with my family, and the situation recently escalated to the point where I had to make a very difficult decision. I'm still second-guessing myself, but I want to see if I was wrong. A little background. My older sister, Lauren, 36F, and I have always had a strained relationship. Growing up, she was the golden child, while I felt like the shadow that never quite measured up. Our parents openly favored her, which I try to overlook as just typical sibling rivalry, but it created a pattern that followed us into adulthood. For context, I've been living across the country for the past 8 years, and communication with my parents and sister has been minimal. About 10 years ago, things came to a head when my sister started dating her now fiancé, Mark, 37M. I won't go into the entire history, but there was a lot of drama involving her accusing me of undermining her relationship, and my parents took her side completely. After a heated argument, I cut off almost all contact. Since then, I've maintained contact only with a few cousins and distant relatives. Fast forward to last month, I got an invitation to her wedding in my hometown. It was a fancy destination type event, and I immediately felt a mix of emotions: hurt, resentment, and anxiety. My parents assumed I would attend without asking me if it was okay, and I spent days trying to decide whether I could even face being there. Before I could respond, my mother called me, and that call went downhill fast. She spent over an hour guilt-tripping me about family, saying that I was being selfish and that Lauren would be devastated if I didn't come. She mentioned how my absence would ruin family photos, and that it was my responsibility to put aside past grievances for this one day. I tried to explain that the past grievances weren't minor. They were emotionally significant, and that I couldn't just pretend they didn't exist. My mother dismissed everything and said, "This isn't about the past, it's about family now." I finally made the decision not to attend. I sent a short email to my sister explaining that I couldn't attend her wedding and that I wished her the best. I tried to keep it neutral, but I did not apologize for not attending because I felt I hadn't done anything wrong that required one. The backlash was immediate. My parents stopped speaking to me. My sister posted on social media about how devastated she was that I wouldn't be there and subtly blamed me for choosing bitterness over family. Even some distant relatives reached out, expecting me to reconsider. People I barely know made comments on her posts asking why I wouldn't attend. The pressure has been intense, and part of me feels like maybe I'm overreacting. Here's the part that's caused the biggest debate among my friends. A mutual cousin reached out privately and told me that Lauren's husband Mark actually supported my decision, but said that Lauren wouldn't forgive me for it and that it would cause tension for years. That made me wonder if this was more about her need for control than about me being genuinely hurtful. I've been reflecting on the situation, and I know my absence will hurt my family and possibly Lauren, but I can't ignore the fact that attending would feel like a betrayal of my own boundaries. The way I see it, a wedding should be a celebration, not a source of emotional trauma, and I just couldn't handle being in that environment without being hurt or forced to pretend everything was okay. On the other hand, I understand why my parents and other relatives are upset. From their perspective, I am missing an important milestone and potentially creating family drama. I also know that my choice might permanently damage my relationship with my sister if it isn't already beyond repair. So here's where I am. I'm sticking by my decision, but I'm questioning if I'm being too rigid or if I should have made some kind of compromise, like attending only the ceremony or visiting afterward privately. I've even considered whether sending a heartfelt letter acknowledging the pain, but declining to attend might have been a middle ground. Honestly, I feel trapped between protecting my emotional well-being and the social/family expectation to show up. I'm genuinely worried that my choice is irreparably hurting my relationships, but I also feel like I need to respect my own limits. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after everything that happened, even though it has caused a huge fallout with my family. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my brother bring his new girlfriend to Thanksgiving after she humiliated me in front of our family. So, I, 26F, have a younger brother, Alex, 23M, and we've always been close. We grew up in a pretty traditional family where holidays are a big deal. Thanksgiving is a huge event in our household. We usually have about 20 family members, extended cousins, aunts, uncles, the whole works. Every year, we all pitch in for cooking and setting up, and it's considered a family tradition that everyone participates and shows respect for each other. Alex has been dating his girlfriend, Kylie, 22F, for about 3 months. She's sweet when she's not trying to be the center of attention, but I honestly never got a good vibe from her. She tends to make snide comments disguised as jokes and has a habit of showing off about how much money she spends or how much better she is than people around her. I've tolerated it for the sake of Alex, thinking it was early relationship stuff, and he seemed genuinely happy. Fast forward to last week. We had a family brunch to celebrate Alex's birthday. Everyone was there, including me, our parents, and our grandparents. Alex brought Kylie, and at first, it seemed fine. She complimented the food, made small talk, all standard. Then she started asking questions about me. It started subtle. So, what do you do again? Oh, that's cute. You've been working there for how long? I brushed it off, thinking she was just trying to make conversation. But then she started commenting on my weight. Out of nowhere, she said, "Oh, I just don't get how you eat like that and stay so round." I could never let myself go like that. I froze. Our family went quiet. My mom's fork paused mid-bite, and I felt my face get hot. I didn't say anything at first because I didn't want to start a scene, but I could feel my blood boiling. I just looked at her and said, "That's incredibly rude." She laughed, saying, "I'm just being honest. I'd never say it to your face if you weren't so chill." My dad frowned, and my grandmother muttered something under her breath about manners. Then it got worse. She moved on to my career, asking, "So you're still at that boring office job? Do you even like it? Or are you just stuck there?" Again, I tried to brush it off, but it was obvious she was trying to embarrass me in front of everyone. She kept smirking while Alex laughed awkwardly, like he thought it was funny. By the end of brunch, I was furious. I pulled Alex aside privately and told him I didn't appreciate Kylie insulting me in front of everyone. He said, "Come on, she's just teasing, don't take it so seriously." I reminded him that she had crossed multiple lines and embarrassed me in front of our entire family. He shrugged and said, "Well, maybe you're being too sensitive. It's not a big deal." That night, I went home and stewed over it. I couldn't believe Alex was defending someone who had treated me that way, especially at a family event where decorum is expected. I decided that I didn't want her at Thanksgiving. I called my mom the next day and explained the situation. I told her that I would be uncomfortable if Kylie attended and that I felt it was important to set boundaries. My mom was supportive at first, saying she understood, but she also warned me that Alex would be upset. Sure enough, when I told Alex I didn't want Kylie at Thanksgiving, he lost it. He said I was being controlling, that it's his girlfriend, and that excluding her would ruin the holiday for him. He accused me of holding a grudge and of not being family-oriented. I reminded him that the point of family events is to be respectful to each other, and someone who deliberately humiliates a family member shouldn't be treated as special. He said I was overreacting and that I was trying to police his dating life. Since then, he hasn't spoken to me much. My parents are caught in the middle. They get that I'm upset, but they also feel guilty about making Alex upset. Some extended family members have texted me saying I should just get over it and that I'm making things awkward, but honestly, I can't see why I should have to put myself in a situation where I'm being humiliated again. I know that holidays are about togetherness, but the idea of sitting at the table with Kylie smirking and making snide remarks the entire time makes my stomach twist. I suggested to Alex and my parents that we could have Thanksgiving at my place instead of the usual family home so that I could feel safe, but Alex said that wasn't fair to Kylie, who deserves to be included because she's his girlfriend. I even considered just leaving early or skipping the meal, but that would put my parents in a difficult position, and I feel guilty about causing a scene. I tried talking to Alex again about boundaries, but he just says I need to grow up and stop being sensitive. At this point, I feel like I'm the only one being reasonable. I'm asking to not be insulted at a family gathering, which seems like a basic request. But now the entire family drama is hanging over what should be a joyful holiday. I even offered to compromise by limiting her attendance to the appetizer hour, but Alex refused, saying it's all or nothing. I don't want to be the fun sucker sister or the one who ruins family events, but I also don't want to be treated like a doormat. I've tried reasoning, compromising, and explaining my feelings, but it feels like no one is taking me seriously except my mom. Even my dad hinted that maybe I should just let it go for peace. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother bring his new girlfriend to Thanksgiving after she humiliated me in front of our family? AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids attend my wedding because she won't control them? I, 30F, am getting married in 3 months. My fiancé, Tom, 32M, and I have been together for 6 years, and we finally decided to have a small, intimate wedding at a local historic venue. We capped the guest list at 80 people because we wanted it to be manageable and personal, focusing on close family and friends rather than distant relatives and acquaintances. Here's the tricky part. My younger sister, Emily, 27F, has 3 children, ages 2, 4, and 7. She's been a single mom since her youngest was born, and she's generally a loving parent. However, her kids are incredibly energetic, loud, and frankly, not well-behaved in public. They don't have bad intentions. They just don't listen, throw tantrums, run around in inappropriate places, and are constantly underfoot. She admits she struggles with discipline, but says they're kids, let them be kids, which is usually fine in casual settings. Tom and I specifically made our wedding kid-free. We explained in the invitations that it would be an adult-only event. Most family members were fine with it. They understood that we wanted our wedding to feel like a formal evening celebration, not a daycare. Emily, however, threw a fit the moment she received the invitation. She texted me, "How dare you exclude my kids? They're family. You can't just decide they can't come. They're part of our lives, and you're being unfair. Everyone else's kids are included, right?" I reminded her that most guests didn't have children or were adults anyway. She kept arguing that my wedding wasn't about me and Tom. It was a family event, and excluding her children was hurtful and discriminatory. Over the next few weeks, she kept bringing up the kids in almost every conversation. She said things like, "Do you really want a wedding where my kids aren't there? Think about how sad they'll be. Or what if they feel left out of their own sister's big day?" It was exhausting, and every time I tried to explain my reasons, she accused me of being selfish. I did try to compromise at one point. I told her that if she wanted, we could hire a professional babysitter to watch them off-site, and she could take them there before the ceremony and pick them up afterward. She rejected that, saying it was ridiculous and that kids aren't furniture you can just drop off somewhere. Things came to a head last week. Emily showed up unannounced at my apartment with all 3 kids, claiming she wanted to talk it out. I was trying to prep the wedding invitations to mail them out, so I told her I didn't have time. She insisted, and the conversation quickly escalated. She said, "You're literally choosing a party over your own niece and nephews. How can you do that? Don't you care about family?" I calmly explained that Tom and I wanted an adult celebration, that the venue wasn't safe or suitable for small children, and that having them there would actually make it stressful for everyone involved. I told her that our choice wasn't about liking her kids less or not caring for them. It was about creating the atmosphere we wanted. Emily then dropped this bomb. She said she would find a way to sneak them in any way, claiming, "If you won't let them come officially, I'll just bring them." You can't stop me. I felt my blood pressure spike. I told her in no uncertain terms that if she tried to bring the kids to the wedding, she and the kids would not be allowed to stay. I also told her I was considering revoking her invitation entirely if she didn't respect our rules. She left in tears, threatening to call our parents and accuse me of being heartless. Since then, my parents have been involved. They call me multiple times, saying that Emily is just trying to include her kids and that I'm being unreasonable and hurting her feelings. They suggested I let it slide, or at least allow the kids to come for the ceremony. I explained that this would undermine the entire event we planned and create chaos. But they insist that family is supposed to compromise and that it's my responsibility to make Emily happy. I feel trapped because I don't want to start a huge family feud, but I also don't want to compromise my wedding day. I have spent months planning the seating, the timeline, and the flow of events. I want people to enjoy the dinner, speeches, dancing, and the overall celebration without worrying about a toddler tipping over wine glasses, a 4-year-old running through the reception hall, or a 7-year-old screaming during our vows. Tom is fully on my side, saying that Emily's refusal to respect our decision doesn't obligate us to bend our rules. He also pointed out that if we gave in, it would set a precedent for future events and holidays. Our close friends also support the adult-only policy. I reached out to Emily one more time to try to find a solution, proposing again the off-site babysitter, but she said she refuses to be part of a wedding that excludes her children and implied that if we don't allow them, she won't come either. She's already started posting vague messages on social media about sisters choosing parties over family and kids being left out of love, which is stressing me out even more. I honestly don't feel like I'm in the wrong. We planned the wedding for us, not for the children, and we gave a reasonable compromise with the babysitter. Emily is choosing to put her feelings ahead of the rules we set for our event. But the constant pressure, guilt tripping, and threats have made me question myself. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids attend my wedding because she refuses to control them? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's second wedding because she's marrying my ex-fiancé and expects me to be her maid of honor? So, this whole mess feels like something out of a bad reality show, but unfortunately, it's my actual life. I, 29F, was engaged to my ex, Aaron, 31M, for 2 years. We dated for 5 before that, and honestly, I thought he was my person. We had the wedding date set, the venue booked, the dress bought, and everything seemed perfect until it wasn't. About 6 weeks before our wedding, Aaron sat me down and told me he wasn't sure he wanted to get married. He said he needed space to think. I was devastated but tried to respect it. A week later, he ghosted me. Literally. No calls, no texts, no nothing. Just disappeared. His mom reached out once, saying he needed time and that I should give him grace. So I did at first. Then, 2 months later, I found out through mutual friends that he'd been seeing someone new. That someone was my older sister, Melanie, 32F. I genuinely thought it was some misunderstanding. I even called her, thinking maybe she was just comforting him and people were gossiping. But she didn't deny it. She told me she didn't mean for it to happen, that they connected emotionally while talking about me, and that she couldn't help it. I didn't speak to either of them for almost a year. I blocked them both, skipped family holidays, and tried to move on. It was the worst period of my life. Therapy, crying, deleting old pictures, the whole 9 yards. My parents tried to stay neutral, which hurt more than I can describe. They didn't condone it, but they also didn't cut her off. They kept saying, family is family. Fast forward to this summer. I get a message from Melanie out of nowhere. She tells me she's engaged. To Aaron. I honestly laughed because it felt like a cruel joke. Then she said she really wanted to rebuild our sister bond and that it would mean the world to her if I came to the wedding as her maid of honor. I thought it was a prank. When I realized she was serious, I asked her why on earth she would think I'd do that. She said it was her way of healing the past, that she wanted to prove love can overcome anything. I told her it felt more like she wanted to parade my pain in front of everyone. She got teary and said I was being unforgiving. Then my mom called. She said Melanie was trying to extend an olive branch and that it would show real maturity if I agreed. My dad didn't say much, just that he didn't want any more family drama. I told them I wasn't attending, period. My mom accused me of holding a grudge and said people make mistakes. I told her sleeping with your sister's fiancé isn't a mistake, it's a choice. Now, here's where it gets worse. My cousin posted pictures from Melanie's engagement party, which I obviously didn't go to, and the comment section turned into a war zone. A few family members said they couldn't believe Melanie would do that to me. Melanie posted a long caption about forgiveness and new beginnings, clearly trying to make herself look like the bigger person. Then she tagged me in the post. I untagged myself immediately. She texted me later saying, "You're making things harder than they need to be. I just want peace." I told her peace doesn't require pretending nothing happened. She responded, "If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem." Now my parents are furious that I'm not attending. They say my absence will cause division and embarrass the family. My younger brother, 26M, thinks the whole situation is insane and told me to stand my ground. But my mom keeps saying I'm being dramatic and that if I really loved my sister, I'd be happy for her. Happy for her? She stole my fiancé. She watched me cry my eyes out for months, avoided me for a year, and now want me to stand next to her while she marries the man who was supposed to be my husband. For context, Melanie has always been the golden child. Growing up, she got away with everything. I was the sensitive one. When we were kids, if she broke something, I got blamed because I should have been watching her. She's always been charming, confident, and manipulative in that subtle way where people don't notice until it's too late. I, apparently, have always been too emotional. I guess part of me thought she'd finally realize how cruel she was. But instead, she's acting like she's doing me a favor by including me. She even told me that me being there would prove to everyone that love and family can conquer betrayal. The nerve. My therapist says I'm justified in not going, that boundaries are healthy. But I can't shake the guilt because my parents won't stop bringing it up. My mom cried last week and said, "I just want my daughters to get along again." I told her that's not possible when one daughter doesn't respect the other's pain. Now the wedding is 2 months away, and the pressure is relentless. Melanie texted me again yesterday, saying she picked out a dress she thought would flatter me. As if that changes anything. I didn't respond. Then she sent a voice message saying she'd already told people I'd agreed to be maid of honor, and that it would be awkward if I didn't follow through. I'm furious that she'd lie like that, but it's also typical of her. Now family members are calling me, asking if it's true I'm finally making amends. When I tell them I'm not going, they act like I'm a villain. My aunt even said, "You'll regret not being there someday." Regret? I regret ever trusting either of them. I've spent years trying to rebuild my self-esteem after what they did. I met someone new who treats me well, but this drama is dragging me back into the worst chapter of my life. So here I am, torn between sticking to my boundaries and feeling like the entire family sees me as bitter and cold. Melanie and Aaron are living their fairy tale built on my heartbreak, and somehow I'm the bad guy for refusing to clap for it. Part of me wonders if I should just go, sit quietly, and get it over with so everyone can stop saying I'm petty. But the other part of me, the part that still remembers sobbing on the floor surrounded by canceled wedding invitations, wants to protect what little peace I've managed to find. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding to my ex, and for not wanting to make peace with people who clearly never cared about my pain. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after finding out she uninvited my wife because of her disability. So, for context, I'm a 34-year-old guy. I've been married to my wife, Emily, 32F, for 5 years. She was in a car accident 2 years ago that left her partially paralyzed from the waist down. She uses a wheelchair now. She's incredibly independent, witty, and honestly one of the strongest people I know. But ever since her accident, some people, mostly in my family, have been weird about it. My younger sister, Hannah, 28F, is one of those people. Before the accident, she and Emily got along well enough. Not best friends, but friendly. After the accident, things changed. Hannah became awkward around Emily, avoided inviting her to girls' nights, and always had some excuse when we offered a host at our house because it might not be accessible enough for everyone. Which made no sense because our place literally has ramps, wide doors, and an accessible bathroom. Fast forward to last year. Hannah got engaged to her fiancé, Ryan. My parents and I were overjoyed. Weddings are a big deal in our family, and Hannah has always been the golden child. I'm a more laid-back, tech job, live my own life type, while she's the one who still has Sunday dinners with my parents every week. When she announced her engagement, she asked me if I would help pay for the wedding. My parents were already covering a good portion, but Hannah said they were tight on money after some home renovations, and she wanted to make it the wedding of her dreams. I make a good income, and she's my only sibling, so I said sure, I'd contribute up to $15,000. That was a big deal for me, but I wanted to support her. Everything seemed fine for months. Emily and I were both excited. She got a beautiful dress and even found a makeup artist who specializes in wheelchair-friendly services. Then, about a month before the wedding, Emily got a text from one of Hannah's bridesmaids saying she was sorry to hear we wouldn't be attending. Emily was confused and showed me the message. I called Hannah immediately and asked what that was about. She hesitated before admitting that she had decided to uninvite Emily. Her exact words were, it's complicated. The venue isn't really wheelchair accessible, and I don't want to make her uncomfortable. You can still come, obviously. I was floored. I asked if she seriously thought my wife would be uncomfortable or if she was embarrassed. She kept trying to downplay it, saying things like, you know how Emily gets tired easily, and I don't want her to feel left out when everyone's dancing. It became clear she just didn't want a wheelchair in her aesthetic wedding photos. I told her if Emily wasn't welcome, then neither was I. She got upset and said I was being dramatic, that this was her one special day, and that she didn't want to have to rearrange things just for one person. I reminded her that one person is my wife, and that rearranging things like ramps or seating shouldn't even be a big deal. She ended the call crying and saying I was ruining her wedding. A few hours later, my mom called. She said Hannah was hysterical and accused me of overreacting. Mom tried to mediate by suggesting I still attend to keep the peace and that Emily would understand. I told her no. I also told her I wouldn't be paying a single cent toward a wedding that disrespected my wife. My parents freaked out. Apparently, Hannah had already put deposits down, assuming my contribution was guaranteed. My mom accused me of financially blackmailing my sister and said I was punishing her for wanting her day to be perfect. I told her my money wasn't a blank check for discrimination. That didn't go over well. The next day, Hannah's fiancé called me privately. He actually sounded embarrassed. He said he hadn't realized how bad the situation was until Hannah told him, and he apologized on her behalf. He said they could try to make the venue more accessible, but when I asked if Emily was now re-invited, he hesitated. Turns out Hannah still wasn't comfortable with it. That was the end of that. The wedding went on without us. I spent the day with Emily, cooking her favorite meal and watching movies. I'll admit, part of me felt sad. She's my little sister, and I never imagined missing her wedding. But I don't regret standing my ground. After the wedding, Hannah sent me a long message saying I'd made a spectacle of her big day and that people noticed I wasn't there. She said she had to explain that I was too sensitive and couldn't separate my wife's situation from her celebration. She ended by saying she no longer wanted a relationship with me until I apologized for making her feel guilty. My parents have taken her side. They said family should come first and that I should have just gone, since Emily would have understood. My dad even said, you can't expect the world to accommodate everything. Now it's been 3 months, and no one from my side of the family has spoken to us. Emily pretends she doesn't care, but I can tell it hurt her deeply. She already struggles with feeling like a burden sometimes, and this just reinforced it. A few of my friends say I did the right thing, that if I had gone, it would have sent the message that I'm okay with people treating my wife as an inconvenience. But another friend said I shouldn't have withdrawn the money because it escalated things and made it seem transactional. I don't think it was about money. It was about respect. If my sister truly couldn't find a way to make her wedding accessible, that's one thing, but she didn't even try. She just erased my wife from the guest list and expected me to smile and pay for it. Now my parents keep hinting that maybe I can fix things by offering to take Hannah and Ryan out for dinner and clearing the air. But I don't see the point if she still refuses to acknowledge what she did wrong. So, Reddit-style strangers of the internet, AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she uninvited my wife because of her disability, AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancé wear my late mother's wedding dress even though my dad said I was being selfish. So, for some background, I, 28F, lost my mom 7 years ago to cancer. She and I were incredibly close. My mom was the kind of person who made everyone feel welcome. She would cook for the entire neighborhood, remember every birthday, and somehow manage to make every day feel special. Before she passed, she left me her wedding dress. She told me, I want you to have this and do whatever feels right with it. It's yours now. The dress is vintage, hand-sewn lace, long sleeves, with small pearls stitched into the bodice. It's honestly stunning, even with age. My mom had it preserved, and I've kept it carefully stored since then. I always thought that if I ever got married, I'd either wear it or have part of it made into something new, like a veil or bouquet wrap. It's one of the few tangible things of hers I still have. Now, my younger brother, 26M, got engaged last year to his fiancée, Jenna, 25F. Jenna is nice enough, though we've never been super close. She could be a bit self-centered, but I always chalk that up to her being young and very focused on social media. She's one of those people who documents every single aspect of her life online, from morning coffee to arguments with my brother that she turns into vague, inspirational posts. A few weeks ago, Jenna called me and said she wanted to come over to talk about something important. I assumed it was about bridesmaid dresses or decor or something like that. When she arrived, she brought a notebook full of wedding inspiration photos. I made tea, and we started talking. Then she said, very casually, "So your mom's dress, your dad told me about it. Could I wear it for the wedding? It would mean so much to your family." I was stunned. It took me a second to respond, because I hadn't even thought about the possibility of anyone else wearing it. I told her, as gently as I could, that I wasn't comfortable with that. I said it was sentimental and that I wanted to keep it safe. She immediately looked offended and asked, "So you're just going to let it sit in a box forever?" I said it wasn't about that. It's just that the dress was personal and I didn't want it altered or damaged. She got quiet for a second, then said, "It's what your mom would have wanted. She wanted to be used for love, not collecting dust." That line hit me hard. I told her I didn't think my mom would want me to hand it over just because someone asked. Jenna then teared up and said she'd always dreamed of a meaningful wedding, and since her mom left when she was little, she wanted to feel like she had a mother figure with her somehow. I sympathized, I really did, but I still said no. She left soon after, visibly upset. A few days later, my brother called. He was furious. He said I crushed Jenna's heart and made her feel unwelcome in the family. He said Dad had mentioned the dress once when Jenna was over for dinner, and she fell in love with the idea of wearing it. My brother said I was gatekeeping Mom's memory and accused me of trying to make everything about myself. Then my dad called. He said Jenna was crying and felt rejected, and that I should think about the bigger picture. He told me, "It's just a dress, honey. Your mom will want her memory to bring people together, not cause fights." That really stung because I adore my dad, and he rarely takes sides. I told him it's not just a dress. It's one of the last things I have of Mom's. I asked him if he'd be okay with someone else wearing Mom's wedding ring. He went quiet and then said, "That's different." I don't think it is. Over the next week, things escalated. Jenna posted a long, emotional Facebook post about feeling like you'll never be enough for some people, no matter how hard you try. She didn't name me, but everyone knew. Some of her friends even commented about family drama and bitter sisters. My aunt texted me asking why I couldn't just let it go and be kind. Then last weekend, during a family dinner, Jenna brought up the dress again, this time in front of everyone. She said she wanted to revisit the conversation and see if I'd reconsider. My brother was nodding beside her like a bobblehead. Everyone was staring at me. I calmly said no. My answer hasn't changed. Jenna looked at my dad and said, "I thought we talked about this." My dad sighed and said, "Sweetheart, it's her decision. It's her mom's dress." Jenna's eyes filled with tears, and she said, "I just wanted to honor her." I guess some people don't understand that. The rest of the dinner was awkward. My brother barely spoke to me. When they left, my dad told me privately that while he understood my feelings, he still thought I could have found a compromise, like letting Jenna wear the veil or some part of the fabric. I told him that I don't trust Jenna to respect the dress. She's already said she wants to modernize it and have it tailored to fit her aesthetic. That means cutting it, dyeing it, or otherwise changing it. Once that's done, it's gone forever. Since then, my brother hasn't spoken to me. My dad is disappointed, but trying to stay neutral. My friends are split. Some say I'm being overly sentimental, while others think Jenna was way out of line for even asking. Part of me feels guilty because maybe it is selfish to hold on to something so tightly. But the other part of me feels like if I give in, I'm betraying the one last piece of my mom I still have. I've already lost her voice, her smell, her presence. That dress is all that's left. Last night, I got a text from Jenna that said, "I hope one day you learn that love is about sharing, not hoarding memories." I didn't respond. But now I'm sitting here second-guessing myself. I never wanted this to blow up into family drama. Yet somehow, I'm the villain. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée wear my late mother's wedding dress. AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids come to my wedding after what they did at my engagement party. So I, 28F, am getting married in February to my fiancé, Ethan, 30M. We've been together for 6 years, and this wedding has been a long time coming. We're not doing anything over the top, just a nice ceremony at a vineyard, around 80 guests, mostly close family and friends. Now, I have one sibling, my older sister, Tara, 33F. Tara and I have never been super close. We're very different people. She's more spontaneous and messy. I'm organized and like things planned out. We get along fine at family events, but she's always been the kind of person who borrows things without asking, shows up late, and somehow manages to make things about her. Tara has 2 kids, Lucas, 8M, and Mia, 5F. They're cute, but honestly, they're wild. Tara doesn't discipline them at all. I'm not exaggerating when I say they run the show in her house. At holidays, they'll jump on furniture, throw food, interrupt conversations, and Tara just laughs and says, they're just being kids. When Ethan and I started planning our wedding, we decided to make it a child-free event. We want everyone to relax and enjoy themselves without worrying about chasing little ones. Plus, the vineyard venue specifically discourages young kids because of safety concerns. There are open ponds, glass decor, and steep stone steps. Well, I told my family. Everyone was fine with it, except Tara. She immediately said, well, obviously, my kids will be there. I explained that no, they wouldn't, that we love them, but the rule applied to everyone equally. She got huffy and said I was excluding her family and that no one else has small kids, so it's basically just about her kids. We went back and forth, and finally she said she would figure something out. I thought that meant she'd get a babysitter. I was wrong. Fast forward to our engagement party 3 months ago, which my parents graciously hosted at their house. It was a semi-formal event with catered food, decorations, and maybe 40 people. Tara was supposed to come alone since she told my mom she didn't have childcare but would stop by briefly to show her face. Except she didn't show up alone. She brought both kids, who immediately started running around. Within 10 minutes, Mia knocked over a glass vase that shattered everywhere, and Lucas was trying to feed cake to my parents' dog. Tara laughed it off and said, at least they're having fun. Ethan and I were trying to stay calm, but then came the final straw. We had a small display table set up with some engagement photos, candles, and a frame sign with our wedding date. At some point during the evening, Lucas decided to help and poured a can of soda over the table because he wanted to see the candles sizzle. It ruined some of the photos and warped the frame with our date. I saw it happen and just froze. Tara didn't even apologize. She said, oh, he didn't mean to. You can print new pictures. I was livid. Ethan had to pull me aside because I was about to lose it. The rest of the night was awkward, and Tara left early after I told her that her kids needed to stop touching things. A week later, I texted her and said that due to what happened, I no longer felt comfortable having her kids at any wedding-related events, including the ceremony or reception. I said it wasn't personal, but after the engagement party, I couldn't risk it. She flipped out. She accused me of humiliating her as a mother, said I was judging her parenting, and even told me that if her kids weren't invited, then she wasn't coming either. I told her I was sorry she felt that way, but that the decision was final. That was 2 months ago, and she hasn't spoken to me since. My parents have tried to stay neutral, but I can tell they think I should just let it go. My mom keeps saying they're just kids and family is family. My dad privately told me that while he understands my side, he wishes I'd find a way to compromise. The issue blew up again last weekend at my cousin's birthday dinner. Tara was there, and the moment she saw me, she started in with comments like, don't worry, my little monsters aren't here to ruin your big day, and wouldn't want to make the bride mad again. I tried to ignore her, but at one point she said loud enough for everyone to hear, imagine being so uptight you can't handle kids at a party. I finally said, imagine being so careless that your kids destroy things and you don't care. The whole table went silent. Tara grabbed her bag, said I'd shown my true colors, and left. Now my mom says I should apologize to keep the peace before the wedding because Tara might not come at all otherwise. I told her that if Tara can't respect my boundaries, then maybe she shouldn't come. Ethan supports me completely, but I'm starting to wonder if I'm being too rigid. On one hand, I know how her kids are, and I've seen what happens when she doesn't keep them in check. I don't want that chaos anywhere near my wedding. On the other hand, she's my sister, and part of me feels guilty about possibly damaging that relationship permanently. A few friends I've talked to say I'm right to stick to my boundaries, that the engagement party was a preview of what would happen if her kids came to the wedding. But others say it's just one day, and that I should be the bigger person and make peace. What makes it harder is that Tara has been posting these vague things on Facebook about family who turn on you when it's convenient and people who think perfection matters more than love. I haven't responded, but mutual relatives have been asking what happened, and I feel like I'm being painted as this villain who hates kids. The wedding is 4 months away, and invitations go out next week. I still have her RSVP listed as pending. Ethan says to just send it as is, with her name only, but part of me wonders if that will cause even more drama. At the same time, I can't shake the memory of Lucas pouring soda over our engagement table, Tara standing there doing nothing, and me thinking, this is exactly why we said no kids. So, Reddit-style question, AITA for banning my sister's kids from my wedding after what happened at my engagement party, even though it might mean she won't come either? AITA for refusing to let my husband's daughter move back in with us after what she did to my son? I, 39F, have been married to my husband, Mark, 42M, for 8 years. We both came into the marriage with kids from previous relationships. I have a son, Caleb, 16M, and Mark has a daughter, Emily, 18F. When Mark and I first got together, our kids were still pretty young. Emily was 10, Caleb was 8, and we tried really hard to blend our families. At first, it went okay. Emily was shy but polite, and Caleb looked up to her like an older sister. Things changed when Emily hit her early teens. She became very dismissive of me and Caleb. She started saying things like, "You're not my real family," and would ignore us during dinner. Mark brushed it off as typical teenage behavior, but it wasn't just mood swings. She would deliberately exclude Caleb from activities, lie about him, and sometimes even take things from his room and claim he'd lost them. At first, I tried to be patient. I talked to her, I took her shopping, I helped her with school projects. But when she was 14, something happened that permanently damaged the relationship. One afternoon, I came home early from work and heard loud crying from Caleb's room. I found him sitting on the floor, surrounded by his things, his drawings, his notebooks, his favorite hoodie, all ruined. Someone had poured soda all over them. On his computer screen was an open social media post Emily had made. She had taken a picture of Caleb sleeping and captioned it, "When your stepbrother thinks he's cute but looks like a troll." The post had over 100 comments from her friends making fun of him. Caleb was devastated. He's always been sensitive and artistic, not the loud, popular type. That incident broke him. He stopped drawing for months, and his grades dropped. Mark and I had a huge fight over it. He admitted what Emily did was cruel, but said she was just acting out, and that grounding her for a few weeks would teach her a lesson. I disagreed completely. I told him she needed therapy and that she wasn't welcome to stay unless she apologized and changed her behavior. Mark thought I was being dramatic, but after seeing Caleb's state, he eventually agreed to send Emily to live with her mom for a while. That, while turned into 4 years. Emily stayed with her mother through the rest of high school. She rarely contacted Mark except when she needed money. She never apologized to Caleb, not once. Then, 2 months ago, she called Mark out of the blue crying. She said she'd been kicked out of her mom's house after an argument and had nowhere to go. Mark immediately wanted to take her in. He said, "She's my daughter. I can't let her be homeless." I said I understood that, but I couldn't in good conscience bring her back into our house after everything she'd done to Caleb, especially now that he's finally happy again. For context, Caleb has worked really hard to rebuild himself. He's doing well in school. He has friends. He draws again. We built a stable, calm home. The idea of Emily returning filled him with panic. When we told him she might move back, He went silent for a minute and then said quietly, "If she comes back, I'll go live with Grandma." That broke me. I told Mark this wasn't about revenge. It was about protecting my son. Emily's behavior wasn't just mean teen stuff. It was targeted emotional abuse. Unless she took accountability and showed genuine effort to repair things, I couldn't risk putting Caleb through that again. Mark accused me of hating his daughter. I told him I didn't hate her, but I didn't trust her. He said people change, and she deserved another chance. I said people change when they take responsibility, not when they show up at your doorstep because they need something. After a few days of arguing, I offered a compromise. Emily could stay temporarily in Mark's mother's guest room, and we could help her find a job and a place of her own. I even offered to pay part of her rent for the first few months. Mark said that was cold, and that families shouldn't treat each other like strangers. He ended up letting Emily move in anyway, against my wishes. I came home from work one day, and she was there, sitting on the couch, acting like nothing had happened. Caleb saw her and immediately went upstairs. I could see the panic in his face. I followed him, and he told me, shaking, "I can't stay here, Mom." He packed a bag and went to my sister's that night. I was furious. I told Mark he'd crossed a line. He said he didn't think Caleb would actually leave and that I was overreacting. I told him he'd just proved that Caleb's feelings didn't matter to him as much as Emily's comfort did. The next few days were unbearable. Emily barely acknowledged me, but I overheard her on the phone with someone saying, "It's so awkward here. My stepmom is acting like I'm a villain." That made my blood boil. I tried to talk to her calmly, saying that we needed to discuss what happened in the past and how she planned to make things right. She shrugged and said, "That was years ago. Everyone's moved on. Why can't you?" That was it for me. I told Mark she needed to leave. He said he wasn't kicking his daughter out. I told him I wasn't asking him to, but I was done living in a house where my son didn't feel safe. I packed Caleb's things and told Mark we'd be staying with my sister for now. It's been 3 weeks. Mark calls me every day, saying I'm tearing the family apart. His mother called me heartless. Emily apparently told everyone I hate her for no reason. But Caleb is calm again, he's sleeping well, and for the first time in years, I feel like I did the right thing. Still, sometimes I lie awake wondering if I went too far. Mark is a good man, and I know he loves both our kids. But every time I picture Caleb's face that day when she walked in, I feel sick. He's my child, my responsibility, and I can't let history repeat itself just because people think forgiveness should come on demand. So, am I the asshole for refusing to let my husband's daughter move back in with us after what she did to my son? AITA for refusing to let my sister and her kids move into my house even though I have a spare room? I, 35F, bought my first home last year after saving for almost a decade. It's a modest 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. I live alone with my dog, and one of the bedrooms is my home office, while the third is a guest room/storage hybrid. I'm not wealthy, but I've worked extremely hard to get to a place where I have stability and privacy. My sister, Melissa, 38F, has had a rough few years. She has 2 kids, 9 and 6, and she divorced her husband about a year ago. Since then, she's been bouncing between apartments, but a few months ago, she lost her job. She was renting a small place and fell behind on rent, and earlier this month, she got evicted. She's currently staying with our parents, but they live in a small 2-bedroom condo and can't really accommodate 3 extra people for long. 2 weeks ago, Melissa called me crying, saying she didn't know what to do. She asked if she and the kids could move in with me just for a few months until she got back on her feet. I hesitated because, honestly, I value my space. I work from home and have my own routines. I also know how messy and chaotic things can get with her kids. They're not bad kids, but they're loud, and Melissa doesn't have the best track record for keeping a place clean or respecting boundaries. Still, I told her I'd think about it. I discussed it with my boyfriend. We don't live together yet, and he told me to be careful. He reminded me that Melissa tends to overstay her welcome and that a few months could easily turn into a year. He wasn't wrong. The last time she stayed with me, 5 years ago, before she got married, she was supposed to be here for 2 weeks. It turned into nearly 4 months, And when I finally told her she had to leave, she accused me of abandoning family. So I decided to set some boundaries before agreeing. I told her she could stay with me for 3 months max, and that she'd need to contribute something, either help with utilities or groceries, and keep her kids under control. I also said the guest room was small and she'd have to make it work. Her reaction shocked me. She got angry, saying I was making it transactional and that family shouldn't have to pay to stay with family. She said she's already stressed and that having to follow house rules on top of that would make her feel unwelcome. She then called our mom, who of course took her side, saying I was being cold and that Melissa just needs help, not a landlord. I tried to stay calm, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized I didn't want this arrangement at all. I told her the next day that, after thinking it over, I didn't think it was a good idea. I offered to help her look for temporary housing and even offered to pay for a few nights at an extended stay motel to give her time to figure things out. She lost it. She called me selfish, heartless, and accused me of turning my back on family. She said I should be ashamed for choosing comfort over compassion. Our mom called me later that night and said Melissa had been crying all day and asked how I could let my own niece and nephew sleep on a couch when I have a spare room. I tried to explain my reasons, but she wasn't having it. Now the rest of the family is split. My dad thinks I have a right to say no, but my mom, aunt, and a few cousins are calling me out in our family group chat, saying blood is blood, and that if the roles were reversed, Melissa would take me in. For the record, I don't think she would. Here's where it gets complicated. I found out a few days ago that Melissa did find somewhere else to go. An old friend from high school offered her a place to stay temporarily. But she's been posting vague things on Facebook about how some people only care about money, and it's sad when family chooses walls over love. People who know both of us have been messaging me asking what happened. I've kept quiet publicly, but I can't lie. It hurts. I feel like I'm being punished for setting boundaries. It's not that I don't love my sister or her kids. I just know what I can handle. I worked hard for this home, and I don't want to feel like a guest in my own space again. I don't think that makes me heartless, but the guilt has been eating at me. To make matters worse, my mom came over last weekend to talk things out, but it turned into another guilt trip. She kept saying things like, when we were young, family helped each other no matter what, and one day you'll understand when you have kids. She even suggested that I could move my office into my bedroom so the kids could have their own space. When I told her no, she said, "You're putting furniture above family." I told her that I'm allowed to decide who lives in my house. She said, "Just because it's legal doesn't mean it's right." That really stung. She left after that, and we haven't talked much since. Part of me wonders if I could have handled it better. Maybe I was too blunt, or maybe I should have offered a middle ground. But another part of me knows that if I had let them move in, I'd be miserable and resentful. I'd lose my privacy, my peace, and probably my relationship with my sister anyway once it came time for her to move out. Now, the family group chat is still buzzing with passive-aggressive messages about people forgetting where they came from. Melissa still hasn't spoken to me directly. I feel sad and frustrated. I keep second-guessing myself. I really that selfish? Or am I just being realistic about what I can handle? So, AITA for refusing to let my sister and her kids move into my house, even though I technically have the space. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.